Jonathan King, 22. So I come down from Cambridge with my Master of Arts degree, and I was a television chat show host, aged 22, 23. Out in Elstree we recorded. I was still doing pop records as well. I had a single in, I think, January 1967 called Seagulls, which I did on Top of the Pops, but it didn't really go anywhere. I think it's quite a fun song. It's sort of one of the first green anthems. And I was doing great on the TV show. We had all sorts of interesting guests. I remember Long John Baldry was on. Let the heartaches begin. I can't help it. I can't win. He was a very good singer, John, very underestimated. I remember years later I was in San Francisco filming Entertainment USA, and the phone went, and it was John Baldry who was living there. And he said, "Oh, it's great you're in town, we must get together and have dinner." And I said, "Yeah, we must. And put the phone down, and suddenly I thought to myself, hang on a moment, we never had dinner when we were living in London together. Why, just because I happened to be in San Francisco and he's here, should we do it here?" We never did have dinner. The Foundations, I remember, "Baby, Now That I've Found You." All these were records we featured on Good Evening, I'm Jonathan King, my ITV talk show, Saturday evenings at 6:30, and We Help Break. Status Quo were another band we had on several times. I remember we had The Herd on, lead singer of whom was Peter Frampton, who became an extremely good friend and stayed with me in my flat for some time, and went on to be an enormously successful musician on his own. But I found the whole world of television very political. My producer was a man called Tony Firth, who was a decent enough man, but the executive producer was a man called Bob Heller, and Bob Heller and I really didn't get on at all, and he was in charge of the whole department or whatever, and worked for the mighty Sir Lou Grade, who was the big boss and the chairman. And I remember once being in Heller's office and having a meeting with him about something, and I suddenly smelt cigar smoke. And I didn't smoke, and Heller didn't smoke, and I thought, that's odd, and I casually sort of turned slightly around to notice that these wooden doors that actually looked like a wall, there were sliding wooden doors, and there was a slight gap between the two, through which a spiral of cigar smoke was coming. Sir Lou Grade was watching and listening to every word. Funnily enough, Lou and I became quite good friends as the years went on, and I remember a few years later we were both on the same flight coming back from New York to London, and we were both flying first class, of course, is there any other way? And Lou, of course, was at the back of first class because he was a cigar smoker, and I was actually in the very front row, which had a nice lot of leg space, and I was working on a novel at the time, typing away or whatever. And all of a sudden I heard a funny noise, and I realised something was going on. I looked up, and there was Sir Lou in front of me, tap dancing. Now, he must have been in his 70s, if not his 80s by then. Funny little bald man. And I said, "Sir Lou, what on earth are you doing?" And he said, "It was the only way I thought I might be able to attract your attention." He said, "It always worked for me when I was younger." He was really quite a sweetheart. We had long gossips and long chats, but I never took to smoking cigars, I have to say. Wasn't my scene at all. One of the people I had on the show, and I've had a lot of emails since I started doing these video blogs asking me about it, was my friend Jimi Hendrix, who I've told you earlier on I managed to provide his first hit for with Hey Joe, and had got to know very well. Of course, I had him on doing, I can't remember what song, I think it was something like Little Miss Lover or something. Anyway, it was a great success, and he and Noel and Mitch, who were in his band, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, were there. We had all sorts of superstars. I seem to remember after or during the rehearsals, because it went on for a day or two, Jimmy was sort of playing guitar with or one of the Rolling Stones in a dressing room. I mean, it really was quite an atmosphere out there in Elstree. We had an absolutely brilliant time. The ratings were pretty good. They weren't enormous, being against the Monkees and Simon D, but they were quite successful, and I certainly enjoyed doing it, and it stood me in good stead because later on in my career, probably 15, 20 years later, I sort of went back into television, having sort of really detoured out of it for a while and made records. and made shows like Entertainment USA, that was a big success, No Limits, revived the Brits, which had fallen into disrepute, started the British quest for Eurovision, which we ended up winning in 1997 with Katrina and the Waves, Love Shine a Light, and various other TV adventures, the Record of the Year show. But this was my first, and it was my first experience on television. I didn't think I'd be any good. I was not at all good looking. You may find that surprising looking at me now, with my chiselled, handsome looks and my wonderfully even smile, my beautiful white teeth and my pure complexion and long, glossy hair. But I've never really been that good looking, and I'm no better looking now than I was then. And I don't know why I'm doing video blogs. I really should be doing radio blogs. They'd be much more appropriate. But I suppose I do have the gift of the gab. You may not give me much, but you must give me that. Please don't forget to join me for the next Jonathan King, which will be number 23.